All right, folks. So it looks like Bautista has made his move. Has Dexter underestimated his former colleague? All of that and more on tonight's The Night, the unofficial Dexter podcast. Stay tuned. All right, good evening to those of you on the East Coast. Good evening also to those of you on the West Coast. Welcome to tonight's The Night, the unofficial Dexter podcast. And I'm your host, Brandon Choi. And join me, Dark Passengers, as we travel down the world that is one Dexter Morgan. Just to This week, we're going to be covering episode 7 titled Course Correction. And if you've been here before, know what the drill is. I'm going to, give you guys a brief recap. I'm going to introduce our guests for this week. And once I've introduced our guests, we're going to go over some themes, analyze the episode a bit, and go into some theories. And then we will give our, final review of the episode. For those of you that are watching us live, thank you guys so much. And if you're catching us after the fact, after we've aired live, just know that efforts will be made in order to put timestamps on each of the components of this episode, so that way you are able to skip forward or go backwards to your heart's content. So just keep that in mind. But in either case, thank you guys so much for watching, and we're going to dive right into the recap now. So I will just give warnings that spoilers are ahead. So hold on one moment. All right, so we begin this week's episode arriving on Dexter and company, coming with Prater at his castle, leased for the day, to reflect on the strangeness / mishaps, with the disappearances and deaths and all within his SK group. And if you know what I mean by that, his serial killer group. While there, Al, aka Rapunzel, shares with the group his latest exploit, and Prater encourages Dex, believed still to be red, to do his show and tell as well. In doing so, Dex fascinates the group, especially Prater, with his vulnerable, less showy, off-the-cuff approach, so much so that Prater meets up with Dexter alone afterwards to share more insights into his own serial killer fascinations. Later, Dexter meets up with the Gemini twin alone. And if you remember from last week, it was revealed that the Gemini killer had a twin, that they are twin serial killers. But yes, he meets with the Gemini twin alone. And similar to the strategy used with his brother, appeals to his ego in order to get him to let his guard down and thus kill him. Though Prater and company do indeed witness Dexter's killing of Gemini, they were a good distance away, which affords Dexter the opportunity to pin all the recent disappearances as well as deaths of the SK Club to Gemini. Afterwards, Dexter engages in some father-son bonding time as he joins Harrison for a college visit. However, this quality time with his son is soon cut short as they run into Wallace, who is there as a special speaker for college hopefuls looking to pursue a degree in criminal justice. Following her presentation, Wallace and Dexter have a fun tongue-in-cheek confrontation with Harrison observing. And as these two stories are playing out, we have a third player, Angel, who, frustrated with Wallace and Aliva's seeming lack of initiative pursuing his theory surrounding Harrison and Dexter, spends the episode retracing Dex's steps until he soon locates Dex's digs at Blessing's place of residence. What results in the episode's conclusion is a standoff between Dex and Bautista in Dexter's car, with the latter appearing to get the upper hand thanks to leaving a tracker in the former's vehicle after getting kicked out of the car. And then we come to our credits. It's our episode for this week. So now I want to be able to dive into our guests this week. Just to give a quick intro, today's guest is an IATSE live sports broadcast stage manager across a variety of sports. However, in her spare time, she imbues her passion for entertainment content, with Dexter, of course, only being one of them. It is my pleasure to welcome first timer to the show, Media Melanie. Let me bring her on now. Melanie, how you doing?
I am great. So excited to be here. And I've just got to say, this season of television has been absolute cinema. My kids have been saying, Mom, you need to say absolute cinema. So here to say it.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. So, uh, just to hit the ground running, I love to get your initial impressions of the episode without, going to specifics. We'll save that, towards the end with our review, but just initial thoughts on the episode.
I thought this was another solid episode. I liked the showdowns that we got between
Yeah.
Dexter and Claudette at the college, and then, of course, the ending with Batista and Dexter in the car. I'm so interested to see where these AirPods are going to lead Batista. And I also loved everything that happened at the castle. I think it was nice to get more context on Leon's background, and I think there were maybe some plot conveniences here and there, but overall,
Yes.
solid episode of television. And the wine glass, putting the double blood slides in, just
Right. Yeah.
so
Right.
many
Right.
critical moments here. It just loved it, loved it.
All right, excellent, excellent. I mean, I guess I'll say I'm glad we finally got some more insight into Prater himself. I mean, we've gotten a lot of teases of his character, and it's been very intriguing to constantly peel away, layers to who he is. We kind of got a semblance of that during that quote unquote like interview that he had. Um, I'm still curious if we're going to get more regarding the cooking aspect that he brought up, because we didn't really get any insight into that this episode. And I was like, oh, you didn't dive into that episode, but or that component of his character or his upbringing. But uh, again, like I agree. It was it was a solid episode, and I feel like it's a solid episode with great moments versus it being a terrific episode with some of the episodes that we've had prior. But considering that, I wanted to get into some themes that seem to be prevalent in this episode, and I love to know your thoughts if there's some additional ones that I don't bring up here, so feel free. The first one that came to mind for me in watching this episode is just the idea of masks. You have that component in the monologue that Dexter brings up, right, and him talking about how they, at being the types of individuals that they are, constantly having a mask up, and you know, secretly, wanting to have that connection with people of people knowing their true selves, but not knowing if people are going to, accept that true selves, that true self or that true individual that they know themselves to be. So, I love to know your thoughts on that because there were some instances where that plays constantly, and I feel like it plays a lot specifically with Gemini, where we have an instance where Gemini he seems like he's cool, calm, and collected, and it feels like once Dexter was able to remove that mask that he had of being cool, calm, and collected, and him breaking down to him like how he operated, that kind of unsettled him and kind of revealed his true guys versus the guys that he presents to people.
Definitely. And with his mask, Gemini's specifically, the ego has a big part to do with that.
Yes,
A
yes,
big part.
yeah,
And for
yeah,
both of these twins to have the same level of ego and conceit
right.
and the irony, and then Dexter taking them out and winning, like you said, when he took Garrett number one out, who's the winner now? So I think there's definitely a mask component there. The ego plays into it. And someone who I think also has maybe one of the biggest masks on, for me at least, is Charlie. I want to know more about her motivations, why she's there, take off her mask a little bit to see, does she like doing this job? It seems like there's a little bit of something between her and Leon, that she's either being held hostage or something. So I would like her to take her mask off so I can see beneath the Charlie of it all.
For sure, for sure, for sure. And I mean, even with all the other characters that we have with Al, where as Dexter, it was fascinating to watch their reaction as he was opening up or being vulnerable to them doing the show and tell, because even with Al, and I feel like even with Prater, like you we were shedding a lot of, and they were feeling exposed. We were shedding a lot of the armor or the mirror that they or mask, I should say, that they present to the world. But another component that was fascinating, and it's in a very twisted kind of way, is just this idea or concept of I call it twisted siblings, or um, having that connection. There are these different facets that we're learning with a lot of these characters that kind of make them parallels of each other. We have components of how siblings normally operate that are really fascinating. I find it fascinating how the our club, um, in one capacity, acts almost as siblings, and they're trying to impress their parent, their like weird parent that they have with Prater. Look at all this stuff that I do with their show and tell. But there's also a sense of a sibling quality in the shared trauma that certain characters have. Like we have that with Dexter and with Prater. So I love curious to know your thoughts about those parallels that we have, with Dexter and with Prater, and then the the interaction or the interpersonal relationships between our club.
Definitely. I think you're spot on with the illusion of parents and children and trying to please them. Show and tell in itself is something that's done in the classroom with students
Right.
having to please
Yeah.
their teacher, right? So
Yeah.
there's definitely a parallel there. And also, I think with let's see, oh shoot, I lost my train of thought. I think the literal sibling of it all as well, because we got flashbacks of Dexter and his brother and the way that he was talking about Brian, and he thought they could work together, but they only met in their 30s and it didn't end up working out. So not only are we getting sort of that figurative level of the sibling nature of things, but then a very literal portrayal. And I love the way that they use these flashbacks both in the original Dexter and then in Original Sin to really just add a little bit of depth and oomph to some of these moments and
Yeah.
remind us why we're all so invested in the Dexter verse as a whole.
For sure, for sure, for sure. And as you can see, the other component there being the fellowship part, and I feel like it's kind of related to what we discussed just a moment ago with mass, but just just that idea that there is this innate desire to find connection and to be embraced, for the person that you believe yourself to be versus the one that you present. So what are your impressions of that we seem to see with a lot of these characters?
Absolutely. So I think there's a very strong fellowship here, and it is very much a club. You have this membership, and I'm also very curious to find out, are there other people in this SK club that we haven't met that perhaps could be opened, up for season 2? But also just the Harrison and Dexter connection as well, and how they're finally coming together. And I was actually really sad when I thought Dexter wasn't going to make the college tour. I was so
I know,
happy
right?
when he
Yeah,
showed up
yeah, it was a
because,
bummer. Yeah, yeah,
yes, like they're finally coming together. Things are going well. And then, if he didn't show up, I feel like he would have definitely dropped the ball. But a connection with everybody, even Angel and Dexter, and Angel making connections with Blessing to infiltrate Dexter's world here. So
yeah.
the connectivity of it all is interesting. And I'm really dying to find out if some of these other storylines will converge in terms of the New York Ripper. How is that connected to
Yeah, because they keep
Leon?
bringing it up, and it keeps popping up. So there has to be something involved with perhaps some existing characters that we don't really know what mask they are presenting to the world and have yet to shed it. So um, one other one, and I'm glad you brought up the example with Harrison is. This continues to pop up and has seemed to be the case ever since the beginning of this series is what's happening with Dexter in terms of his evolution and what's happening in terms of Harrison with his evolution. And I don't know if you had a chance to see prior episodes. If you haven't, no worries. But the theme that I have come up with is just this idea of descent and ascension and that intersection between those two, where we have with Harrison a descent where when we first got introduced to the character in New Blood, there were, of course, some similarities between him and Dexter, but there were some things that made him far warmer than Dexter, where he was able to connect with people immediately. He was able to create a rapport with people immediately, even though he only met them briefly. And then Dexter, as we well know, he's far more withdrawn, he's far more protected. But with this show, and then I want to say it was the prior episode. I want to say it was a prior episode where we had the death of Blessing's mom.
Yes, I
Maybe
think so.
yeah. So with that episode, there was a shift in that where Dexter was demonstrating that he was able to connect with people, and I mean he's always had the ability to connect with people, but the fact that he was able within this show in terms of his evolution to do it so quickly, and then on top of that too, because of the circumstances of what happened at the beginning of the show, that we're finding that Harrison is far more withdrawn. And the other component that I'll add to that's happened in this episode is we're steadily starting to see more of Dexter's discomfort with violence that happens to others that are innocent. I feel like even though he kind of verbalized it in prior shows, I feel like it was more of a rationalization for him just to get to his end goal of being able to satisfy his dark passenger. But I feel like in this show, we're seeing more of an evolution where, as much as he tries to deny that he has any type of humanity, he's starting to have more discomfort, and we see it in that show and tell with Al, more discomfort of what's happening to those who are innocent. Because prior it seemed to be just specifically with kids, but now it's with anyone who seems to be innocent. So your thoughts?
Yeah, he's becoming sort of this superhero. And something I've been talking about in my Dexter videos is this
Yeah,
backdrop of New York to me. And the way that they're cutting the montage at the beginning and the end of the episode just is giving like comic book hero vibes, right? Like he is this dark passenger, this avenger of sorts. And something with the humanity of it all I thought was kind of funny. When he was rehearsing in the mirror, trying to just channel the vibes of what he thought Red was in terms of being a killer, that was so funny as well. This episode had some really comedic lines. And speaking of Al's show and tell, when he was like, or I guess when Gareth got stabbed with a wine glass, when he said, this is why I strangle people. I don't like blood,
I
which I
like
thought,
blood.
right? Like that's so funny. He's a serial killer. He
Dark,
kills
very
people.
dark.
I
Yeah,
mean, and you can't take a little bit of blood. So I thought that was
right.
just really masterful and really funny. And yeah, I think that Dexter is definitely shifting this season. He does seem more like deeply aggressive, especially to your point about violence to others. So I think that was demonstrated very clearly. And I think on the opposite side, Harrison pursuing law enforcement is giving him this hope that even though he's doing what he's doing, the next generation maybe can actually overcome this somehow. although I'm still not sure Harrison can contain his rage. So we'll see
Yes.
where that ends up,
Yeah.
I guess. So.
Yes, for sure, for sure. But I'll open the floor, up to you. Were there any other themes that I haven't, mentioned here that that you like to discuss that has, whether it's been in the past or even in this episode individually.
I think for me, the whole cat and mouse theme of
Oh yeah,
Angel
sure,
and
yeah,
Dexter, I mean, that's
yes,
just been an ongoing one, of course. And
yeah,
the biggest question of all is, will this cat and mouse game between him and in season one, or will they carry Batista through? Because I can see it both ways. If they get rid of him at the end of season one, I think that's a big swing. It would be absolutely shocking and devastating for those of us who
yeah,
love Angel. But at the
yeah,
same time, because he is so beloved, will they carry him over multiple seasons? But will that chase be overdone and like been there, done that type of thing? Should it go on season after season? So I'm interested in the chase of it all, and Claudette and her chase of both the New York Ripper and trying to pursue justice for Ryan's killer. And the voice that we heard on Claudette's tape, little off this subject, but I think that can put to rest that Blessing is not the New York Ripper. This has obviously been another recurring thread and mystery, who's the New York Ripper.
yeah, yeah,
So the voice, I've listened to that voice so many times trying to figure it out. Is it Claudette's partner? At first, when we got the Chester Morris reveal, I thought, okay, Leon is saying that this guy has killed other people. Could he have been the New York Ripper? That's where he procured this weapon from. But then he died before his 50th birthday. And then we have the phone calls and just trying to put these pieces together. So I mean, we've got all the killings, and then we've got the bigger mystery at hand, and figuring out if this cat and mouse chase of the New York Ripper alongside the Dexter and Angel will move into another season, or even if Leon, for that matter, moves to another season. Is Rapunzel going to make it out of here? I think they've gotten rid of some of these killers so fast, and I had hopes to keep some of them around a little bit longer. So I'm most curious to see Leon, Charlie, and Al. I think one of them has to make it beyond season one. So who's it going to be?
for sure, for sure. And I'm glad you brought that up. Actually, thank you. I appreciate the assist. That provides a great segue into our theories. Getting into our theories, um, one that I'll come back, and I do want to revisit the one that you gave is will do we believe that Prater will succumb to his fascination? Because I feel like at some point something has to give where he's vicariously experiencing all these things with all of the group members, but at some point he's going to kind of have to cross that line. So it'll be fascinating to see if that happens, and if so, what is his reaction to it? Because maybe even though he might be fascinating, he might be repulsive. He himself does it. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say with Leon, and I'm on the Reddit boards. I'm always looking around for theories, and something that stood out to me was, what if Leon does find out Dexter's the Bay Harbor Butcher? I think there's a pretty good chance that that could come up, just given everything with the police right now. And what if he takes this connection that he felt with Dexter, and instead of having this club, he hires Dexter, pays him all the money, and commandeers him to commit these murders, do the show and tell, or maybe he even builds
Interesting.
Dexter a whole
Interesting.
kill room in his vault and
Interesting.
watches Dexter do it. And that's how we can carry over Leon from season one to season two.
And I mean, he has resources, so I mean, he would be, a valuable ally. I mean, hey, I like that theory. Um, because I mean, the only other things that have come up in reference to what you bring up regarding what is it, the New York Ripper, is something is going on with Aliva. I'm convinced something is going on with him. I know last week, my guest host was telling me that they felt that it was Wallace, but I was like, that's too easy. Like, she's already kind of weird anyway. And I feel like the weirdness plays into the fact that she's very analytical and that she thinks outside the box as a investigator. So I was like, no, that doesn't work. But there have been a lot of instances where we've seen Aliva seemingly, if you look at it again, trying to get Wallace off the scent of all these different instances where she seems to be on the mark. And uh, I mean, it would also play into your theory too of him being the Ripper as well, because I mean, we outside of what we know about him, he could be a secret additional member of this SK group that has ties to Prater, because Prater has mentioned, hey, I have, ties to law enforcement at all levels. This could be the guy that he has the ties with, who not only has is his, quote unquote law enforcement guy, but is also a serial killer himself that Prater has a part of his group. So, but that would be fascinating if they did move forward with having having Prater go on into another the next season, because Peter Dinklage is awesome. It would be a bummer to have him go. So like to have him still continue onwards, going forth in the Dexter world would be interesting. And at the end of the day, going back to our themes of connection and fellowship, it provides Dexter that opportunity to have that type of relationship with someone who accepts him fully for who he is. So, yeah.
Definitely. And, speaking of Olivia, I think he would be the perfect type of character to be the New York Ripper as well, because he's a little bit tangential, a little bit on the outskirts. We don't see him all the time. He's like
Exactly.
that mid character where it's not right in our face, a little bit background. He could be the right age and that voice on the tape that could easily be his voice. And to your point about him trying to get Claudette off the track of everything, why else would he do that? And Leon does have a connection somewhere in law enforcement. It bothers me. How did he get that hook? If this is an open case, there's no way the
Right.
police would just let him buy this at some auction or something, right?
Right.
So I think he must have got it from somewhere. I don't exactly know where. But then there's the likelihood or the possibility, I suppose, that after giving Claudette that insight into the blood spatter and saying, hey, this is not a crowbar, what if Claudette ends up enlisting Dexter for his help in the investigation, which would be the most ironic of all? I think it really disarmed her that Harrison was going to go into law enforcement. So maybe this will be a shift in perspective, and maybe Dexter can somehow brand Batista to be the crazy guy that he is, who's been so obsessed with this, and somehow endear Claudette to him and his opinion of things.
Speaking of that, I have a theory for you. Considering what you brought up about Prater, what if we have a similar type of circumstance with Bautista, where I mean he's aware of all these instances where people in his and Dexter's circle have died, and maybe he actually gets more insight into how he operates, and in doing so he develops he doesn't he, like he's not friendly with Dexter, but he has like a ends up having a truce with Dexter, where he still interacts with Dexter, and when there are instances where maybe now that he's retired he becomes a PI, and he on occasion consults with Dexter or works with Dexter or teams up with Dexter on occasion. That way we can still keep Bautista because we love Bautista. He's awesome. But it still allows us, or still allows his character to still hold that grudge against Dexter for, having that mask, up that entire time that he's come to know him.
Yeah, I could see that happen. And I think that could come about with the whole AirPod of it all, right? So we know Dexter wants to take out Al. Let's say he goes after Al next. Angel follows him, sees what he's doing. And then Dexter explains, hey, this guy is a serial killer. And then he brings up, I mean, God, they've been buddies forever. We saw that in Original Sin. And he
And
brings
he
up,
brings up,
like this is how it started, this and maybe he has this moment of honesty and says this is how it started and this is why I'm doing this. And maybe you're right, maybe Angel can come to terms with it, come to some kind of a truce if Dexter can explain to him the true nature of some of these other deaths that Angel thinks are all his fault. But I mean, tangentially, yes, they are, but
Yes, right,
not fully. So
right, right.
I would love that, and it would be the perfect way, like you said, to keep him around. And I think us as a fandom would like to see more of him on our screens. And I'm worried that he hasn't told anybody about what he's investigating because Quinn and Masuka were there, right?
Yeah,
He's gonna have to tell somebody at some point what's going on because they wouldn't have had Quinn and Masuka there if they weren't setting something up for one of them to come to the
right.
rescue or jump into
Sure,
this investigation as
sure,
well. So I'm
sure.
wondering how that will tie in because
And we need Masuka too. We need Masuka too. I
yes,
love
yes,
Masuka's awesome too.
yes.
It would be good to get the whole gang back and have a quote unquote a Scooby gang of sorts that Dexter has kind of in his corner that he works with occasionally.
Scooby Dooby Doo. I am all for that. Yes.
But other than the ones that I brought up, are there any additional ones that come to mind for you before we get into our review
Ooh,
that you've been pondering maybe?
let's see. I think those are probably the big ones. I think I'm just going to say a theory I am not buying is some people saying that Gemini is a triplet. And if I hear that one more time, I'm just going to lose it because no, I'm sorry. Gemini inherently means
It's
twin.
done. It's
That would
done. Let
be
it go.
ridiculous. Like, let's not go there.
And David Desmalchin is awesome. Don't get me wrong.
So good. I'm
He's
so sad
awesome.
he's gone. So
Yeah,
sad he's gone.
yeah.
Absolutely. But yeah, I don't know about the whole triplet thing. And then with Blessing being the Ripper, I think most of us can put that to rest after hearing the voice. And if he was involved, he'd have to have some kind of a partner. And that wouldn't really make sense because we don't know as much about Blessing besides his family members. So I just don't
But
think
I,
that's even a thing.
I was gonna say I do understand that theory though, because based off of the all the information that he's provided about himself, of him being a child soldier elsewhere before he came to America, he kind of implies that he still had some issues once he came over to America, where there was some trauma there, and maybe due to that trauma, he lashed out and did a bunch of violent things. But um, yeah, I don't know. Maybe they save it for another season that we find out that there's more to him. I don't know, but I do believe there might be something to that to revisit that they might try to tackle.
There could be because
Even if it's not the Ripper specifically.
right, because they're not just going to introduce this character. I mean, it makes sense. This is how Dexter got an apartment. This is how Dexter is making connections, back to the theme of connection here in the city. Because in one of the episodes, Harrison was like, hey, you've only been here 3 weeks and you know more people than
Right.
I do,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
all plays into that whole connection theme. But is there a world where I actually thought Blessing was going to see Gareth Number One's body in the bathtub, where Dexter maybe
Right.
catches him doing, or where Blessing catches Dexter doing something, and then they have this moment where maybe it's a way that Dexter can mentor Blessing to help him. Because he has somewhat of a dark passenger, I suppose, as well. So
Yeah.
he's not just a throwaway character. I think you're right. There's something that's going to have to come into play with him, but I just don't think the New York Ripper is it.
I believe you. I totally agree. But yeah, there has to be something. They wouldn't have brought up the traumatic past that he has, and they wouldn't have brought up his emphasis on his mother being his north star, of her kind of being the person who kind of reels him in. I feel like something is going to come of that. So in one way or another, but. Um, you are our guest this week, so I want to punt it over to you for the review with our wrap up. I know you had a chance to see the prior episode, so as you know, we have our microscopes here of five being, a perfect episode or as perfect as it can be. Where do your feelings lie with this episode?
I feel like I'm somewhere between a 3.5 and a 4. I think the season as a whole will end up being close to a 5 for me. But the reason I rank this one a little bit lower is some of the plot conveniences. So
Yeah,
Dexter seamlessly getting Leon and Charlie off the scent of him having taken Lowell out. I think
Yeah,
they bought that a little too quickly. Leon
yeah,
seemed to right away be like, oh my gosh, you know, thank you for taking care of this, whatever. Charlie seemed a little bit more skeptical. So there are some things that I'm kind of like, yeah, you know, I don't know if they should be buying that or
yeah,
for me it's like this guy Red shows up, the new guy, and all these things start happening, like Mia gets caught, she's
yeah,
dead, Gareth, you know, this happens, Lowell's just disappeared. So that's one of them, but also just this is a silly one, and I mean it's not super critical, but the timing of Dexter and Harrison at the college when Claudette is
yeah,
there lecturing on the New York Ripper. I'm like,
yeah.
what are the odds that they're just there for a tour on the day where she just happens to be there? And we know she's lecturing, that's been brought up, so fine. But the timing of it all, and it's, again, it's fine. It's not a huge critique, but just, and I get it, shows need to do that just to move things forward. So, but
For
I
sure.
just giggle to myself sometimes when I'm watching, like, yeah, okay, like she's just there at this exact same time. So,
No, I hear you, and I'm in the same camp as you. Like this is, as I mentioned at the top, like I give it 3.5. It's a great it's, if I were to sum it up, it's a great episode, or say it's an okay episode with great moments. We have, you know, things that happen that are okay throughout, and then we have these moments, these arches, these moments where something awesome happens. We have an interaction, whether we're talking about Harrison, Wallace, and Dexter at the college visit, because I really got a kick out of Dexter kind of like messing with Wallace when he was talking about the weapon that was used by the Ripper, and her reaction, and him knowing, where she stands with him, and her suspicions of him, and him still like psychologically messing with her.
loved
Um,
that.
that was, it was great. Same thing with Dexter and Gemini's interaction, and him, like as I said, using that same strategy of him appealing to the ego, and just the acting that Desmouchin has in terms of showing that progression of like that mask melting away, where he kind of opens up to Dexter, he warms up to Dexter, and then like Dexter pulls the rug from under him in terms of, telling him that, that I took out your brother, by the way. And then the same thing with Dexter and Bautista. It's so weird after everything in terms of their entire relationship and their working relationship, to see them at odds. I'm for it. It's cool. It's just weird that that they're at odds, where Bautista was always like one of Dexter's like biggest allies and biggest supporters, and
Yes.
it provides an interesting wrinkle now to see them at odds with each other now. So hopefully, as I said, they come to some truths. But for right now, it provides an interesting wrinkle to their relationship in terms of their interaction, because that standoff in the car, I was like,
Ooh.
and not in a million years would have seen this scene. If we're talking about the world of Dexter, because he's like, one of Dexter's biggest, allies, friends. I mean, whether we're going way, way back, now that we know a little more about his history from Original Sin, and now even with the original show. So, yeah. But yeah, definitely 3.5. I agree.
Yep. Now let me ask you this: do you think that Gareth let it out a little bit too quickly once Dexter started saying, you know, I know you're a twin? He didn't pause very much before he let it all out and opened up to him. And I get it, he appealed to his ego, and that's obviously like the biggest button to push there. But also, I was like, really? You're not going to be a little bit more secretive about this and let
He
him
gave
get
him
it out of
some
you?
pushback. I do remember him giving him some pushback, where he was like, careful how you continue, this conversation. There was one point where he was giving him, a lot of pushback, but um, for me, I feel like, that progression, you know, I was able to buy,
Okay.
where the other ones that you mentioned, I could definitely see, but with that one, I could buy, just by virtue of what we've seen with this character up till now, and what we've observed about this character, where just that exterior of confidence, and then when things are kind of broken down of how he operates, and he feels exposed on how kind of simplistic
Yep,
his
yep.
methods are. You kind of see him kind of like shrink and melt. Like it's very fascinating to see. It's a great acting exercise. Being a theater major, but in observing with an actor, them being able to show that progression of being one way at the top of the scene and then being completely different by the end of it. So,
Right.
um, but yeah, so that is going to do it for this edition of Tonight's the Night. But I want to punt it over to my guest this week, Media Melanie. Melanie, can you tell folks where they can find you?
Absolutely. You can subscribe to my channel here on YouTube. Either hit up MediaMelanieTV.com or just search for Media Melanie TV. I am covering Dexter Resurrection weekly. Also, on the complete opposite side of things, The Summer I Turned Pretty. For all my Team Conrad girls out there, you've got to check that coverage out. But another show, too, I don't know if this one's on your radar, Brandon, but The Institute on MGM Plus is
Okay.
also very dark. It's morally ambiguous. It's sort of giving that same, like, they're doing bad things but maybe for a good reason, and it's a Stephen King adaptation. So if you like the show From, which I know a lot of people watch who also watch Dexter, check that show out too, covering that as well. And yeah, I'm so glad you asked me to come on. I love talking about TV, and this season of Dexter has just been so good. New Blood was not my favorite. I really did enjoy Original Sin. I think Patrick Gibson just slayed as
Nailed it.
Dexter.
Yeah, nailed
And
it.
now this just feels like we're right back in the heart of the Dexter verse that we all fell in love with. And Michael C. Hall is just bringing it. So 3 episodes left. Cannot wait to see how this pans out, who's moving on to season 2, and answer a lot of these questions that they've done such a great job building up.
And I will ask you this because since you brought it up, because I find people that are on both sides of this. I'm on one side, but maybe you're on a different side.
Okay.
Is as awesome as Original Sin was it the right decision to do another season? Because I feel like we closed the book enough on that story arc where you can go right into the first season of Dexter, and there's no need to really do another season. As awesome as the show is, I don't want them to just do a season just because the first season was well received. I would feel okay with it just being a mini series and us just getting the one season and moving on to if you're doing your viewing order, going right into the original Dexter show. What are
I
your
actually
thoughts?
could not agree more. And it's funny because when I first started reviewing Original Sin, I even said in the first place, do we even need this prequel in the first place? Because the original Dexter did a great job of giving us the character DNA of who Dexter is, how he got there. So we did repeat a lot of those things. We did learn some things as well, but I definitely do not think we need a season 2. That was something I was asking at the end of the season as well. Like, where is this going to go? I think they could do like a Brian Moser spin-off potentially, where we see the gap in between Original Sin and
Sure.
where their stories intersect in the original Dexter. But
Yeah.
for me, I don't think we need it. And also, can I just say, Sarah Michelle Gellar, I thought should have just had something more to do there. I
Yes.
love
Yeah.
her. I
Yeah. For
love her,
sure.
but
For
I was
sure.
just left asking, why is she in this show? And if they do have a second season, I guess my biggest hope would be that somehow
They expanded
she,
for her.
yeah, something, just like anything. So I'm on your side with that one 100%.
Cool beans, cool beans. So there you guys have it. Again, I want to thank Media Melody for hopping on this week and being the guest host this week for Tonight's the Night. I'm your host, Brandon Troy. You can find me at Brandon Troy ENT on X, and then Brandon Troy underscore uh, ENT on IG. With that out of the way, thanks again for watching, everyone, and till next time. See you soon.